every day you would be responding to 3, 4 calls on fentanyl, people dead. And you're talking about kids between the ages of 15, 16 years old to people between the ages of 60 and 70. Somebody dying from it, somebody passing out from it, or basically treading the line between life and death.
Rafa Conde is a DEA agent based in South Florida. He's been on the front lines of the American opioid crisis since it first began in the 2000s with the explosion of OxyContin out of Florida's infamous pill mill pharmacies, and later with the rise of the fentanyl epidemic. He's witnessed the worst of addiction. Pockets of every major city and town that go largely unnoticed by the majority of Americans, but that are being torn apart by deadly drugs like meth and fentanyl imported by Mexican cartels. Rafa shares crazy stories about his years spent in the field and gives us an insider's look at the secrets of the DEA, how they operate, and how they go after targets. He also exposes a shockingly large amount of corruption, especially of US mayors and city council people, with money generated from drug trafficking. Finally, he attempts to answer my very basic question, one that I've been asking for many years now. Is it time to end the war on drugs? You can get Rafa's best-selling book, The 21st Century Man, available on Amazon and in every major bookstore, as well as take his coaching courses, which you can find on his website. We'll put the link in the description of this episode. All right, you guys, a fascinating discussion about the state of drug trafficking and drug addiction with someone on the right side of the law for a change, Rafa Conde, right here on The Connect with Johnny Mitchell.
I was assigned to 2 task forces. I was assigned to the Multi-Agency Diversion Task Force, which is a federal and county task force. We had FBI, we had, you name it, the DEA, all different agencies, narcotics. That was President Obama initiated that task force, and we were the only one in the entire country to exist under his command. And that was a very powerful experience because it was during a time where the pills, the oxy pills and the heroin, that was a huge problem, right? It took over higher than, it was a more powerful drug. Heroin was like third in line. Cocaine was third in line. Oxy was number 1, especially in South Florida. Yeah. And so they built that task force. Then in that task force, a lot of the guys were assigned to DEA after that. After they completed that task force, then we were assigned to DEA for a few years, and we did mostly federal cases, federal level cases. But I will tell you, a lot of states, specifically Florida, is tougher on drug dealers than the federal system in many aspects.
Texas is like that too, probably.
So
like it's better in Texas to get caught with a couple 100 pounds of weed, at least back then, than it was to get caught with 3 pounds of weed.
Because feds won't touch that, man. That lightweight, 50 pounds or even 100 pounds. Nowadays, they won't even touch that.
No, what I mean, like if you got caught in 2005 with 200 pounds of weed in Texas, assuming you didn't have like priors or super high points, you do like 3 years in a federal camp. If you get caught with 5 pounds of weed in 2005 in Texas, you're probably going to do 5 years in a really disgusting, horrible Texas prison, Texas state prison. Yeah. That's what I mean. So looking at it through a lens of a drug dealer, like Florida is probably the same way.
Yeah, it's very close. I mean, it's the whole world of drugs and narcotics when it comes to, most of my career, that's basically what it was. Working street level, mid-level, and then you go to upper level. And the system is very different. You think that higher level is going to give you higher charges. Not always that. It's not always like that.
Right.
It's kind of screwed up. Usually the mid-level is where you get punched in the face.
Why is that? Tell us why.
Because you can cross-designate them with state charges, and they'll divvy them up. They'll go, we'll hit you with some federally, and we'll hit you with some state charges. All right, so they'll divvy them up. So you'll get state and federal charges, and that sucks. That's like not a good thing. When they go too high, the federal government just wants to take it. Okay, and usually from there, depending on your prior history and so on, then it's It's a whole different world.
Well, usually at the highest levels, everybody is cooperating. And so the higher you are in the drug game, the more information you're going to have and the more leverage you're going to have to,
right. I mean, typically what happens is
early.
they'll right. Your sentence, if you cooperate, if you play the game, it's going to be minimal in comparison to the states. They don't even give a about that. You know, I know, our prosecutor, he said, I don't care about cooperation. I don't care. You're going to go do the time, you know, and it's, and it's hard time. It's not well, you've been waiting around for trial for 2 years, or we're going to give you time, we call it bonus time. We're not going to do that. You're going to start from the moment that you go in and you are, that you're found guilty. And that's a terrible thing because for the most part, you had guys waiting 3 years to go to trial.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Well, but it's illegal to not give them time served, no? No,
time served is different, okay? That's a lot of time. In our state, we call it bonus time, which means that if you were to wait, like a year, they will give you like 3 weeks or 5 weeks to extra, reduce your sentence by that. Well, time served, yeah, that's across all states.
Right. Oh, I see. So, if you're fighting your case and you can't bail out and you're in there for 3 years, which I've seen with my own two eyes being in the system, cats in there fighting, especially murder cases. Most cats don't have money to bail out. So you're in there for 3-4 years. You might even beat it. Yeah. But then we're just locked up for 4 years.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Do me a quick favor before you move on with it. Drop us a comment. What do you think about this guest? What do you really think? Drop a comment in there for us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and then hit that notification bell so you get alerted whenever we drop new content. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not a good place to be. Florida is probably one of the toughest when it comes to that. And when it came to the pill mill epidemic, they were because our state got hit by far the hardest.
Of course. But how did you guys, those pill mills were legal in many cases.
Oh man, I could tell you stories. I mean, I went undercover I made one of the largest cases, Tango Vax operation. You can look it up on YouTube and you'll see that. I mean, we did a lot of stuff, man.
But how did you guys discern between the clinics that were running?
We would go in like this. This is what would happen. I would go undercover. They would put me in there, or one of our agents in the task force. And what would happen is that they would go and talk to the doctor inside this clinic. And keep in mind, this clinic had 500 people in the lobby waiting. When you pulled in, this is great. When you pulled in, the parking lot was completely full. So some of these clinics, they would have, how for events, they have these little transportation caddies. Yeah. They would have people park, like event parking, like 2 or 3 parking lots away. So they would get this transport vehicle to take people in, and they would be waiting in line. Outside, the lines would be waiting, hundreds of people outside. So anyway, we would go agents undercover, and then we would basically ask the doctor, hey, I need some pills. Doctor would go, well, let me take a look at you. And you would say, well, my shoulder hurts a little bit, or my back hurts a little bit. And doctor will touch you here and there. Okay, fine. Boom, done. Prescription done. So the idea was that they would hire a lot of younger doctors that would get, and I remember interviewing them for so long. I mean, sitting on a table across from them and saying, what happened after we arrested them, took their Ferraris, took everything in search warrants? I would say, what happened? What happened to you? He goes, well, I came out of medical school. They approached me. They said, here, I'm going to give you $500,000 up front. And for the rest, for the next year, I'm going to give you another $500,000 as long as you do this. You just
which is saying yes to everybody, basically.
Crank out prescriptions. Right. Yes. And a lot of these had internal pharmacies. So it was bang, 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 bang. They would be racking, I don't even know, thousands and thousands of pills every single day.
No, it's like a joke when you describe it that way. It's like the closest thing I think we had to that in America was like the crack lines in any major city in the 80s, where like around the block, it looked like a welfare line, but it was people lining up for red tops, blue tops.
Yep.
You know, that was Florida's equivalent. It's crazy. Now, who were many of these people? I mean, we've had a few of these guys, talk to them on the show. White guys, kind of like good old boy Florida guys that are just entrepreneurial and crooked. You know, Florida. There's not really a lot of qualms when it comes to like making money unethically. Like nobody bats an eye. So, I mean, it's the fraud capital. It's the, it was the Oxy, ground zero for the Oxy crisis, tons of scams. It's just, I don't know, that place just like it's in the water. So who were a lot of these, would you just call them drug dealers, or were they business people who like went crooked as time went on?
That's a good question. One of the things being an undercover agent and having an opportunity to interview these people, and remember, most of the time you're masked up, right? I mean, they don't see you, they don't see you, but you're asking these questions. And initially, he's a bad guy. He went and did this in a dirty manner. But when you get their story, like some of it makes sense, okay, why they would go out there and do something like this. Do I say that they're all bad people? No, I don't think so. I think maybe they did things in a way that they got way too greedy. They wanted to make money way too fast. And, they went down the wrong pipe. On the flip side, there are some that were just there to do it the wrong way from the very start. Okay. But I mean, think about it. I mean, you're sitting there, you just got out of, medical school, and you have, I don't know, a couple $100,000 in student debt. You married, you're married, have a child, and someone comes to you and says, I'll wipe out your debt, give you $500K right up front. I mean, it's hard to.
And that's who these guys, these opioid clinic operators would target. Was like doctors right out of medical school. Without
a doubt. That's exactly what they would do. They would go hunt them down.
How many clinics were there at like the height of this boom in the 2000s?
Hundreds, maybe even thousands. And every corner they would sprout one here, one there, one here, one there. And it got to the point, because you have to remember that they were selling pills here, but the price point here, when I say here, I'm talking South Florida, the price point was anywhere between $7 and $10 a pill. Okay. The street price was about $17, $18. However, most people that came down were from very far away states, specifically Kentucky. Kentucky, you would find Kentucky license plate everywhere. I would say half the cars in these parking lots were from Kentucky. And people, they're going to ask me why, right? Well, in Kentucky, for whatever reason, the price of one pill was anywhere between $80 and $100. One pill. Yeah. And these guys, what they would do, they would swing and they would go doctor shopping. They'll go from this clinic, this clinic, this clinic, this clinic. By the time you know it, they have 10,000 pills. Almost $1 million worth of product going back home. And that's one trip around. They'll be back next week.
Insane.
So they would hire, what would happen is drug dealers would just hire them, say, hey, do your rounds. Yeah. Pay, I don't know, a couple grand for almost $1 million worth of product.
Holy. So it was mostly out-of-town drug dealers descending onto Florida. Is that because the laws were stricter? They must be, right? In terms of getting opioids, getting OxyContin in states further north?
Yeah, they were stricter. And it was just, Florida was so loose at that time, where it was so difficult to really track, doctors. It was difficult to track the pills, where they were going to. It was almost impossible. But, a new system eventually was put in place. Everybody started all over, and it was just things are better now. But back then, it was a free-for-all.
So did that give any benefit to the crackdown on OxyContin and these clinics, the looseness of these pill clinics? Did that give any advantage to Mexican drug cartels at all?
Mexican drug cartels were, believe it or not, starting to dabble in the pill market. You see, the pill market, a lot of people, big cocaine, very sexy, right? They look at it from a point of view, a kilo, sometimes, you would see fluctuations in kilos from, 12, 15,000 street price to 25, 30,000, but when pills started to hit the market, it's almost like every other drug took like a step back. They weren't as popular. Everything that everybody wanted, they wanted the heroin, that heroin fix. And it became more than an epidemic. It became just an easier way for drug dealers to make money, to make bank faster than cocaine, faster than marijuana. And even we were also doing cases on MDMA, ecstasy and things like that. But pills were taken over.
I realize that, but making them illegal or very hard to get. So just take meth for a second. There used to be biker dope when you could just go buy as much ephedrine over the counter as you wanted, right? Just like kind of the way that you could with OxyContin in Florida. Once they cracked down on that, now they gave the whole market in doing that government policy. They effectively handed Mexican drug cartels a monopoly on crystal meth, which they now completely control.
Completely.
So did you see any of that happen with opioids like OxyContin or not? I don't know. I'm just curious.
It wasn't like how it is now, where they have a staple on that. They started dabbling in that. They wanted to get into that market. That market was so closed off, though, where there wasn't the supply, with cocaine and even with,
crystal.
MDMA and crystal. The supply is almost unlimited, right? And the supply was so hard. These Mexican cartels, they want quantity. They would probably be looking at, 100,000, 200,000 pills. And that wasn't the game.
So you couldn't even do that because we had a guy on here who used to bring pills back from Tijuana and he would take them to Indiana, which, obviously like a state ravaged by OxyContin. But you don't think the cartels could do that to scale the way that they could with fentanyl, for example?
No, that was a fact. They couldn't. They tried. They tried. It was just there wasn't enough putting out
production capacity.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
that's
there wasn't
super
enough.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though ideally, when Big Pharma would have loved to back that.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That was the thing. But can you imagine? Oh my goodness! Like Big Pharma backing the cartel.
Well, that's what's super interesting is what we realized about that. The Purdue pharmas of the world wanted this crackdown on these pill mills because they wanted to monopolize the market.
That's right.
Just like the cartels want the government in America to crack down on drugs because so they can monopolize it. But just something happened where I don't know what it was specifically, but that just kind of fell out of favor with opioid users. Like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. So what year did you see the opioid epidemic, not the opioid epidemic, the OxyContin phenomena start to taper off?
Right around 2015, 2016, you started seeing
so that's when the fentanyl boom starts to take off.
That's right.
So do you think that preceded, do you think the OxyContin epidemic of the mid 2000s gave rise to this new era
without a doubt
fentanyl users?
Without a doubt. It was, oh man, the stories that I can tell you about fentanyl. Yes. It opened it up. The punishment by the state and then finally the feds was so harsh on pills. They were doing such a hard crackdown that people started to say, you know what, I'm not even going to go that way. So you started to see these pharmaceutical companies pump out the product, but doctors now were way too shy to start writing prescriptions because they, once they saw a bunch of them going to jail.
Yeah.
And it was stacks and stacks of these losing their lives. They said, you know what? We're going to chill. So that definitely, right about 2014, 15, we saw the downscale there. And then all of a sudden, boom, fentanyl comes into the market.
Because now you have all these addicts. You might not have doctors writing scripts, but you have a bunch of
they're
opioid
cross-lacing,
addicts.
Fentanyl with everything. You whatever you can imagine.
Man. So you were working up until a couple of years ago when you retired. Did you see, talk about fentanyl in Florida. Is there, I'm sure it's all over the place there now, but was that one of the ground zero states for fentanyl, or did it take a while to get over there?
Yeah, it was one of the ground zero states. So I worked for both the city of Riviera Beach, considered one of the most violent cities. That's where crack cocaine, the lineage of crack cocaine, started in the entire country. Then you go to West Palm Beach, which is the next door neighbor, beautiful city, but a lot of violence and a lot of drugs. And when I was tapering off my career the last few years, I was a field training officer, and boy, I can't tell you stories right now that, fentanyl was every day you would be responding to 3-4 calls on fentanyl, people dead, and Narcan, okay, which is, we used to call it, the what is it called? Rising from the dead, drug, boom, hitting people with Narcan. And you're talking about kids between the ages of 15, 16 years old to people between the ages of 60 and 70, and it's, fentanyl was just an everyday thing. Somebody dying from it, somebody, passing out from it, or basically treading the line between life and death.
Yeah, and now you've seen overdoses from fentanyl curtailing kind of sharply. I think it was like last year, overdose deaths were down like 15%. Do you think that's because of a shrinking of supply, or do you think that's because people are getting used to it? Like the people are getting a tolerance for it?
I think that's neither of those answers is correct. I think reporting is a big deal. Departments have changed their reporting ways. All right, there used to be UCR reporting. Now there's different ways to report these. So most of the time, look, I still am in contact with a lot of guys that are working the beat, working the street, working narcotics. It's not any better than it was a few years ago. There's still the same waves of people, dying. And however, I think the way that some of these things are reported, sometimes the numbers are skewed.
Yeah, certainly. It's getting harder to believe government statistics. I read that fentanyl seizures were up 40% since Trump took over. Now, who knows? A lot of that is probably the cartels simply giving it to the Border Patrol. We all know that they call up and they say, hey, there's a load coming through for you guys, and they can report it as a bust. So could it be anything else, though? You don't see demand for it waning at all because of how deadly it is?
Man, I don't see it. Fentanyl's rather, it's in numbers out there. It's still in numbers. And I just don't see anyone being able to put enough of a plug in that to, make it a 15% lower. That's 15% a drastic number.
Yeah.
You tell me 3 to 5%, I'll be a little bit more in line and say, yeah, but I'm gonna call BS on that and say, I believe that it has to do with a lot of the way that these departments report and even hospitals report.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What would be the motivation for them to underreport fentanyl overdoses?
Well, we talk about Big Pharma, right? There's connections all the way across the board, even from police departments. The idea is that they don't want people in their city, right, dying from overdoses. That just looks horrible for the city. You sit in front of city commission, it's like you had 37 overdoses last month. Who the hell is going to want to buy in your city? Who the hell is going to want to open up a business in your city? It just doesn't sound good, right? Also, from a perspective, when you talk about hospitals, these pharmaceutical companies are out there, you know, they govern a lot of what these hospitals take in.
Right.
So, you know, overdose fentanyl from here to fentanyl from there is just not a, it's not a good look no matter how you look. From whatever perspective that you're looking at it, it's not a good look, right? And fentanyl, I mean, when you really look at it, what it's made to do, I mean, a lot of people, you know, say, well, automatically it's some type of horse or even elephant tranquilizer. And when you study it and try, but the reality is that the way fentanyl right now is being sold on the street is not fentanyl like from the hospital.
Right.
Okay.
Fentanyl's been around for a long time as a pain.
100%. A lot of the cancer patients take it, you know.
Yep.
So yeah. It's just
the New York Times ran this big article. They're having trouble making good fentanyl down in Mexico right now. So if you go to Culiacan, well, not Culiacan, they're in war, but you know, Sinaloa, Durango, all these different independent fentanyl cooks, it's like they're like evil scientists. They're experimenting with batches. They take animals and they give them, you know, a hit of a fentanyl batch, and if it dies right away, that's a good batch. Yeah, so it's like if you go to Culiacan, they say there's stores, little tiendas everywhere that are selling little bunny rabbits, sweet little bunny rabbits, all over the place, because that's where these cooks go to get their experimentees. Jeez. So I think they're maybe having a hard time with like supply chain from China getting the precursors. So I don't know. I mean, it's tricky. Nobody really has a full answer to it. But yeah, certainly out on the streets, it doesn't seem like, even in Austin, you go a mile up the road to the freeway overpass. I mean, the demand certainly seems to be there, you know, whether the potency is all that or not, I don't know.
The best way to find out is you ask the fire department, you know, how many calls are you responding to?
That makes
See
sense.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you walk over to your nearest fire department, they're going to say, yeah, none of this has changed. It's the same as always been.
Today's episode is sponsored by MANDO, the world's #1 whole body deodorant, a dear friend of the show. I love MANDO. I use MANDO myself. It's the only kind of deodorant I use. It's whole body deodorant, so it can go on any part of your body. It can go on the bottoms of your feet, in your nostril, in your armpits, if you're more traditional. Wherever you stink, MANDO has got you covered. MANDO was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. And what I love the best about MANDO, besides the delicious variety of scents like Mount Fuji, Bourbon Leather, Clover Woods, or Pro Sport, is that it is completely aluminum-free, baking soda-free, paraben-free, and vegan. Now, I know there are some other aluminum-free option deodorants at the grocery store or at CVS or whatever. They all suck. They don't keep me dry. I start to stink again after a few hours. This is the first deodorant that has actually figured out how to keep you dry and smelling good while giving you deodorant that is not causing damage to your body. That's why I love MANDO. Do you want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? You can find them now in big box stores all over the country. Walmart, Target, CVS, and Walgreens. But for the best deal, go to shopmando.com. Check it out. Mando's got a starter pack that's perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. And as a special offer for my listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use Mitchell, Mitchell, at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. You cannot beat that deal for the best deodorant on the planet. That's shopmando.com, shopmando.com, and please support our show by telling them that we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits and smell great doing it.
Do you think working 18 years in drug undercover, DEA, drug interdiction, what comes first? The demand or the drug? Because we always hear like, well, drug dealing, it's a victimless crime, or it's, even if it's not victimless, it comes from demand. But perhaps if you introduce, like Mexican cartels introduced fentanyl to the streets.
Yes.
So what do you think it is more of? Like if dealers bring fentanyl to the US and to start giving out tasters in places like downtown LA and, Palm Beach and, Kensington and Philadelphia, like, do you think that actually creates a whole epidemic around the country? Is that possible?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's all about one person taking it and then saying, wow, what a great experience, especially when it comes from junkies on the street. They are the biggest, your biggest source of marketing something. It comes from the junkies, right? From a lot of the homeless people. And then it trends. The next wave is obviously, teenagers and, the club culture and, nowadays the electronic scene, right? But for the most part, if you can, man, if I'm the cartel and I want to spread a drug, that's what I do. I put it in batches out on the street and see how people react to it. And the moment that we start getting good feedback from this batch, I am modeling all my batches like that. Spread like wildfire.
Yeah. Of course, we've known that forever. Like even with traditional heroin, like when somebody ODs, that's good marketing for a drug dealer because then all the junkies are going to go there. Yep. However, opioid addiction has been around, at least since the start of the drug war in like the 1920s or 30s. People have always, there's just how people have a predilection to alcohol addiction or stimulants with cocaine and speed and stuff. There's always been this, there's always been this segment of society that's just liked opioids, need opioids sometimes for medical reasons or just get hooked on them quick. So in that sense, the cartel is just responding to a demand, but they're now responding to it by, giving out the next evolution of an opioid that's, tearing apart lower class people or people on the margins in America.
So it's, we talked about chasing the dragon, right? How it makes people feel. But the reality, especially when it came to Oxy, right? When the opioids, when they were out there strong in 2010, 2012, it was more about just baselining, meaning that for that person that was so addicted to that drug, for them just to be normal, to have a conversation like this, they would need to be 2 or 3 pills in. They would if they did not have that in their system, they would be completely erratic. So it was just maintaining. So most of the time when it got to the highest of levels, it wasn't people trying these pills, right? It was more people just maintaining, right? That's the difference when, you asked me about a batch a little bit ago, but to answer your question here, where it comes, when it comes down to opiates and specifically in the market that we have now, I don't know if opiates right now is the go-to drug for a lot of people. Okay. I think that marijuana, believe it or not, has made a huge turn and it's coming back stronger than ever.
What does that mean in the black market?
In the black market.
Did it ever go anywhere though?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It faded away for a while. Not nearly as powerful and as, there was a time where marijuana was in the front of everything, right? And then when these pills started to come in,
but marijuana has always been the most used drug in America and probably the world.
Right. No, I'm talking about a recreational drug. Okay. Marijuana, the reason why marijuana is the most used drug, it's not because it is the most recreationally used drug, is because it's administered in so many other levels of medicine. Right. So they account for that. One of the things at DEA, and they still haven't taken it off as one of their schedules, which I think eventually they will, is there's a lot of medicinal properties that are counted in the use of marijuana in their statistics. So recreational drugs in comparison, especially to MDMA, when MDMA was, when these MDMA pills were hard in the 2007, 2008 scene, okay, that was a number one recreational drug coming straight from China here. Marijuana has always had a lot of users overall, and it'll always be the largest used drug.
That's right.
But not recreationally. Okay, there's two. One of them is from the medicine side, and they're going to put that along with the users. So in Florida, I don't know how it is here, but you get a card, you get a medicine card, right? What is it? Marijuana medicinal card. Okay, where you can go and you can buy your marijuana. And, you can buy, I don't even know how much, what personal use is. Last that I heard, there's over 3.5 million people just in our side of the county that are using marijuana. So those statistics go into the quote unquote use of marijuana. So marijuana is always going to be, unless they find some medicinal purposes for MDMA, which they have technically a little bit, okay? And fentanyl, not nearly as much. So marijuana has all these properties, and it's always going to be the leading drug of choice for doctors and people using it.
Even before it had any medicinal, legitimate, or in the eyes of the law, any legitimate medicinal purposes, it was still the most used drug. It's only medicinal because that's like the law. That has nothing to do with anything. It's always been and always will be the most used drug because it's the best high. It doesn't kill you. I would love to do opioids. Heroin seems awesome. I don't do it because it's going to destroy my life. Marijuana, middle-class people can engage with it the most. That's the reason.
Yeah,
so
marijuana, you're right.
And I'm arriving at a point that I'm trying to figure out, or that I'm trying to challenge you on, is that addiction is complicated and it comes from so many different societal factors. And a lot of that is what leads people down the road to using life-destroying drugs. The cartel or criminal groups that introduce it to the market are just responding to a demand that has been created by government making drugs illegal. That's my argument. That's
but I would agree with you there. I don't think there's anything that we disagree on that from that point of view.
Okay. So do you think this is great then? Do you
they are responding to a demand, and that's it's part of the game.
So then I guess I think people at the DEA understand that. I think you talk to any DEA agent, they're like, yeah, the war on drugs has never worked, won't work, but we're in it because it's our business. So if you made drugs, like, is it possible when are we going to move on from this war on drugs that's been going on? Like, it feels like it's like we're doing this again. Like, we're cracking down on drugs again. What is this, 1981 with Ronald Reagan? Like, you know what I mean?
See, I see it from where you're coming from, okay? And I think that sometimes it's a little bit different being on the other side of the house, okay? Yeah. Understanding that when I was assigned to the task force, what we saw was, more than anything, that really hit home with me was the younger generation, dying and dying and dying. I mean, we were having so many deaths of kids between the ages of 15 and 18 years old. Yeah. So that screwed me up, right? Yeah. That was like, you know what, man, this needs to stop. Okay. Yeah. Now, the other side of the house is, look, we understood that you're going to have, these cartels that are going to come in, and these larger organizations, because it's not just the cartels. You have the triads, Yakuza, you have mafia, different staples of mafia all over the world, right? And of course, you have the cartels. They're going to go out there and they're going to move their product. They're going to respond to a demand, and that's what they're going to do. The way that I look at law enforcement is curtailing some of that. Okay. And when I say curtailing some of that is you're hoping that it doesn't hit the streets and does what these OxyContin pills did. Start taking all these lives. From a perspective of high level, okay, you're talking about guys that are moving products in the millions and millions of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. If we didn't have that, stoppage, or at least teams, okay, that would curtail that. First of all, let me say this very clear. Drug dealers would lose a lot of money because drugs would be a lot easier to get. People would have there's no recourse to it. So the street market price of the drug would go to nowhere, right? Supply and demand.
Like it has with marijuana, more or less.
Yeah, because such a overwhelming amount of it that it's just like everybody is growing it. I mean, a lot of states it's legal, So I think the supply and demand. I mean, if you imagine right now cocaine being okay in every state, that kilo is going to be worth $2,000 in 2,000 or 3,000 in a year.
Yeah, some guy, a gentleman we just had on the show, Luis Navia. He worked for the Medellin, different groups within the Medellin cartel for years. He was a huge cocaine smuggler. He made an interesting suggestion. He said, "What if we grew coca leaf in labs, like in greenhouses, government-controlled greenhouses in the United States, and basically controlled the whole production line down to distributing cocaine, the final product, in clinics." You would tank the price, and there'd be no incentive for producers in Colombia. I mean, there might be some, right? Just like, there's always bad actors, but I think you would cut out the illegal trade by like an overwhelming percentage.
I mean, I think that would have a huge impact in illegal trade.
However, to play devil's advocate, you guys cut down on the pain clinics. Like the government was essentially doing a small experiment by allowing these pain clinics to operate, right? The state of Florida. Like that's what happened.
Right.
These guys, criminals, basically took advantage of these lax laws around pill mills, and that created a huge epidemic.
Yep.
So it could go the other way. Like what could have been done differently, I guess, with pill mills? People that legitimately need an opioid, unfortunately. I don't know. I'm skeptical that those have any value, but just say that they do. Say that there are some people who are injured or hurt who have illnesses or pain from, no fault of their own. Can the government, can we trust them? Can we trust our government, our completely useless government to administer that to them without things getting out of hand?
Hard, man.
It's so hard.
That's hard to say. You know, I mean, it's so hard. You asked me, how can we, how could we have done better to prevent that before it even got started, being a little bit proactive? Well, I think first and foremost that these clinics that were just being able to pop up here and there with absolutely, no at all, no guidance, regulation, or they just opened up anywhere.
Yeah.
And there was very little. So I think we could have made it a little bit more difficult. Okay. I think also we could have made it where we would have a little bit of a background checks on who actually opened up these clinics. A lot of them were people that were, past criminal histories. And, not to say they can't open something, but you would want to make sure that we kind of draw down on that and see, hey, how's that clinic doing? Having a little bit more focus on those clinics. But overall, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it is a hard look from a law enforcement perspective. We're not going to stop drug trafficking in the United States. It's just not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. But the best thing that we can do, as far as anybody working in narcotics front, is to curtail, and hopefully you make enough impact that you're not letting it flood neighborhoods and streets, and those users are outside those boundaries. See, when you start bringing them in to places like businesses and downtowns and areas that are, families go to, and that's the problem. If you're able to clear that, okay, this is from a boots on ground perspective, right? You're able to clear that, you're okay. Like, I don't think it's gonna be such a dynamic problem, okay? But the more it saturates and the more that it, unfortunately, the more that we see the drug cartels come in and start distributing these drugs here and there. Look at Miami. I mean, I don't know if you ever been, you were just there, right?
Yeah, I love Miami.
It's I was born and raised there. I love Miami, but man, okay, you can go in any corner and get whatever drug you want, like in no time. And they have narcotics teams there. They have everything there. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to stop it. But yet you can clean it up a little.
It didn't affect me at all. All I see is cities getting nicer for the most part. Rich cities. Now the cities like, I don't know, places I've never been. Knoxville, Tennessee. Downtowns are probably forgotten and getting shittier. The Midwest, the flyover states, yes, are probably crumbling, but I don't think that comes from fentanyl. I think that comes from problems that we've been dealing with since the 70s, outsourcing, the diminishment of the middle class, all these populist policies that every politician runs on. I don't think the drugs come first. I think the misery comes first, and then the drugs come in.
Yes.
Miami's a gorgeous city, so who cares if there's drugs everywhere?
Let me push back a little bit here. Okay.
Cool.
Yes, I agree with you. That misery, number one. Okay, we're going to agree on that. But what happens is this. Drugs are a very close second, because what happens is these drugs cause crimes all over the place. You're talking about burglaries. The moment that we see a saturation in a specific area, okay, we already know that burglaries are going to happen within that sector. We've seen, we've had 15 cocaine busts in this sector. This is where they're selling it. This is where we've seen it go to. They shifted from point A in the city to point B, and all of a sudden you start seeing break-ins. Why? Because obviously the lower society, the lower socioeconomic, the dope
that's how they get money.
And then the crackheads, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to go out there and start burglarizing homes. People are going to get hurt from it, and so it does cause that wave in criminal areas. Okay, I believe and in these criminal areas. So it's yes, misery. Okay, but the drugs do make a huge impact. If you saturate it into an area, chances are that crimes are going to increase.
For sure. Okay, so, and generally, they're not, Mexican cartels, correct me if I'm wrong, because Miami's your city, they're not dumping a kilo of fentanyl on some stash house in Coconut Grove. Nobody is using those drugs. The worst drugs are going already to the worst neighborhoods. And that's right. That compounds the problem for working class people who live there.
That's right.
Have you ever felt like you're being punished for mistakes you made years ago? That's what bad credit can feel like. But there's finally a way out. Let me tell you about Ava. If you watch my show, you know that I've been working with Ava for some time. I cannot recommend them enough. Ava is a credit building app that makes it so easy to improve your credit fast, so you can get better rates on loans, pay off debt faster, and keep more money in your pocket. That's a fact. You gotta have good credit in this day and age. I need a business loan. I tried to take one out a couple of months ago. I got denied, not because I don't have the money or the business. It's because I didn't have a strong enough credit score. I should have used Ava, and in a month or two, I would have had good enough credit to get a loan. It's so important, whether you want to get a mortgage on a house, send kids to college, or get a business line of credit. You need to have a strong credit history, and that is where Ava is absolutely instrumental and a leader in the industry. Here's how it works. Ava reports your on-time payments to all major credit bureaus every day, helping you build solid credit history quickly. So, if you're like me, almost everything you do and pay for every month is on a subscription basis, whether that's your Netflix, your rent, your barbershop, all of those payments you make, Ava will report them in real time to every major credit bureau. The longer you stick with Ava, the higher your score can go. Ava also offers its own credit card, which is a perfect way to start building your credit, especially if you don't have any. Most credit cards take weeks or months to get approved. With Ava, you can get approved in as little as 5 minutes, and you get up to $2,500. There's no credit check, no interest, and no hidden fees. Just an easy tool that helps build your credit behind the scenes. That's unbelievable. And it only costs $6 a month. For just $6 a month, you get access to all of Ava's credit building tools. Ava keeps it low stress, low cost, and super transparent. Ava is the highest rated credit building app out there with thousands of 5-star reviews and the only one rated excellent on Trustpilot. Take control of your credit right now. Download the Ava app, spelled AVA, today, and when you join using my promo code CONNECT, you're going to get your first month totally free. Once again, go download the Ava app and use my promo code CONNECT so they know you heard it from me, and get your first month with Ava free. That's promo code CONNECT. Thank you, Ava. Now go and get yourself some good credit. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss out on any of the excitement this season. Go to PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. If you guys love firing on action like I do, especially because the NFL season is here finally, and you want to 10x, 100x, 1000x your money, PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports app you should be using. Look, I'm a casual sports fan. I love sports, but I don't have time to study it day in and day out to try to make the right picks on Sunday. But that's why PrizePicks is perfect, because I'm not playing against the Sharks, the line at Vegas. It's just me versus the stats, okay? If I think Saquon Barkley is going to rush for more than 200 yards, I simply select that. Do I think Joe Burrow is going to pass for more than 2.5 TDs or less? Boom, there's another selection. That's literally how easy it is. I just made a pick for us right there. So that's more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could just cash in right there. PrizePicks is also the best way to get in on action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are safe, fast, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Download the app today and use code CONNECT to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CONNECT, CONNECT, to get $50 in lineups after you play just $5. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Okay, so let's talk about Florida. Let's talk about we'll start with cocaine. We'll start with Miami, and we'll work from there. What is the cocaine trade like now in Florida and in the United States?
Well, I retired a few years ago. I left and I hung my badge. And until that time, what you can see, cocaine was still tracking. It was still very, very a prominent drug. In the years that I was specifically assigned to Riviera Beach Police Department, crack was the leading drug out there. I mean, there was nothing like it.
Crack is back, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So I don't think crack ever left. Okay. I think crack, you don't see it as often in your more affluent cities. But when it comes to the lower socioeconomic areas of most cities, crack is king. I mean, you're talking about cheap. I mean, where else can you go and spend $8-10 to get a fix, that'll last you, a couple hours? Very, 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 I mean, it's a very rare, you pop a pill, okay, it's still going to cost you more. Yeah. So when it comes, even some places, I remember like $5 or $7 for like a little rock. Mm-hmm. Okay. And So it's still there. I mean, especially the drug dealers that go out there and start cooking, the cookies, and they still that's still in areas, and it's still out there.
And I assume that's a black-driven trade.
It is a black-driven trade, yes, but it is not only in black neighborhoods. We've seen them also in lower socioeconomic, where you would think that other drugs like pills or even meth, were predominant. Crack is still there. I mean, it's easy to cook. Crack is just easy. You're talking about a cookie that you can literally do. You mix it up a little, and you can do it in a very short period of time and sell it for 30 times what you invested in it.
Yeah, and you can put your own mix on it if you're a drug dealer, whereas with crystal meth, all of it's already coming prepackaged from Mexico. Yes. So you have a little bit more wiggle room when you get a package of cocaine and you can bust it down and cook it up. Do you think that crack is still more prominent, or cocaine is more prominent than crystal meth? Or do you think crystal meth's taken over amongst the working class as far as stimulants go?
It's coming. It's coming. Over the last few years, right before I hung my badge in law enforcement, we started to see that spike again of meth. And, guys that I was speaking to, meth was coming. I don't know if it's going to overtake cocaine, but in my opinion, damn close.
Especially as far as like ghetto or working class people go.
That's right.
Because meth gets you higher for longer, I think, for the same price. Like, okay, what is like, what are the economics of crystal meth versus like crack? Like, how much does it cost?
It depends on what size of rock for crack. For example, if the rock, if it's $20 rock or a $30 rock, that's going to boost you up for a couple hours. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're buying meth, depending on what, how much of it you're actually taking, it can be 2 hours, and they're somewhere in the same ballpark as far as, $20 to $50 on an average. So mathematically, as far as how much money you spend on one or another, they're similar, okay? But they're different highs, though, okay? They're different highs. Crack cocaine is a much more in-your-face kind of high. It just kind of takes you over, whoom, right? Meth is much more of a slower, okay? And it kind of peaks you out and then brings you down.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I was locked up with a lot of Mexican guys who were like, this is on the West Coast, it's different, but they're like, oh yeah, meth, that's what we push most. Más gente consume.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You have to remember though,
because if you're a truck driver, like it's hard to smoke crack if you're going to wig out, but if you get this like slow spike and then high and then a relatively gentle come down, that's probably what you're going to choose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, and it's going to be predominantly, meth is not strong in the black culture.
No.
It's just not strong there. So, they're going to be.
Those are like black skateboarders. You don't see a lot of black guys smoking meth. But you're like, when you do, you're like, oh, that's cool. You're like Pharrell.
I think for the most part, though, I mean, predominantly, black drugs are marijuana, of course, number one. And then you have, crack cocaine. And I worked in that half of my career was working in African-American communities. So but meth, very, very little. That's more towards, the whites. That's more towards the Latins.
Yeah.
That's where you start seeing that fade away.
That's right. You mentioned MDMA. That's an interesting one. Can you, is that something that like law enforcement actively goes after on like a high level? Is there even like a trade, like a really hierarchical trade in MDMA?
Yeah. Most of a lot of the ecstasy, MDMA, came to this country through China or through Canada borders. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, we would see batches, sometimes, man, I made seizures of thousands of these pills, The problem with the MDMA, while not as strong initially, not as strong as Oxy and those, but then they started getting worse and worse, and they were mixing them with fentanyl. They were mixing them with all sorts of who knows what. Some of these times where you would test these drugs and you would send them to the lab, you would get back the lab readout. It's like, what in God's name is in these drugs? This can just kill anybody. So, we worked, some undercover Miami festivals. We worked some of those festivals where also some other festivals like BET had some festivals in our city. And some of these pills that you would find, you would try to test them and you don't even know what's in there. So it's scary. But China was bringing them in, man, by the buttload. I mean, they were bringing them in big time.
How? Like through ports of entry in the United States, or would it go into Vancouver, Canada, and then get mixed into the, made into Molly or pills and then brought into the U.S.? Like, how does China move MDMA into America?
We saw a wave of cruise ships bringing them in. Okay, we saw a wave of cruise ships that were coming from that area, coming into ports, to your typical trucks, boats, and how other ways. I was never involved in the MDMA world that deeply, but we saw them come from, and we worked a case out of China. We were trying to see where we could connect with the producer of this. But man, they are like the main, or they were the main supplier.
Wow, that's crazy, man. They really are the main supplier of everything.
We had numbers that were like 30 cents on an average to make a pill.
Yeah.
And they were selling them here for anywhere between like $7 and $10.
And they sell them by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
What about you say marijuana in the black market is coming back in a big way. I mean, I didn't even know it went anywhere in terms of the black market. But what about, where do you see that specifically, those big black market? Who are the big black market players? And what about like Florida, for example? How is that making an impact on the illegal drug trade in Florida?
Well, it's not that it went anywhere. I think that what happened is you saw a slowdown at some point where, some of the especially in with the African Americans, the low socioeconomic class were trying to shift, and believe it or not, MDMA was a big thing. Okay, in that culture throughout a time frame, and we would find more of that. There came a point where we were finding more MDMA than we were marijuana and traffic stops and so on. It's not, maybe I didn't say it correctly. Not that it went away, but there was something else that was more prevalent.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Whenever whoever the hottest rapper is, I'm going to sound like an old white dad right now, but whenever like Future or, Young Jeezy come out with like a hit song about a drug, it really makes a huge impact on like the subculture.
Yeah, I agree.
And like that's crazy,
I agree. I mean, you'll go back to the bath salts or those. You talk
the bath
about
salt phenomena of 2013.
Johnny, I could tell you freaking stories of people running around the street. We had training specifically how to take these people down in groups of 5, 7, because they were running around like you would think they're like Exorcist, like kind of shit like that, you know?
What are bath salts? I mean, everybody, that's like a joke now when we talk about Florida. That's like a punchline. But what actually are bath salts?
It's chemicals, man, that are mixed. We don't even know. Because we call them bath salts they're more of a generic type of drug, but it's a chemical that is mixed with sometimes, there's something called, I think, Fentanyl. If I'm not mistaken, there was fentanyl mixed in there, or ketamine. I don't remember the name, but it's
ketamine.
Ketamine, yeah. Fentanyl. There was sometimes there was cocaine in there. We saw all these mixtures in pills. And also and they would stick it with needle. It was like a yellow syrupy thing. So these things that were called bath salts, nobody really knew what they were. Nobody really knows. It was just like these chemical compounds that had specific traces of something, okay, that would make these people completely out of whack. I mean, completely out of whack.
Like PCP used to do.
Yeah, like you could, but these people were literally contorted to you would think they had their bodies overheated, so they started getting hot. They started running, doing all sorts of weird things. They started seeing visions. I think it may have even some of the mushrooms or something in it too. I don't know. I never really got into that because I was in a position at that time that I was more of a beat cop. Okay, for some of this, it just for me it was the time that it went crazy, that everybody was doing it. It was just unbelievable. You know,
it seems like when we talk about drug use in the United States, there's like a sliver of junkies, whether that's like 2% of the drug users or 1%. I don't know. It can't be very high, but and usually, yes, it's amongst like the underclass and just straight up homeless people, right? Like there's homeless cities from San Francisco to New York to Philadelphia to Austin, right? There's these subculture of bums, junkies, dope fiends that make the trends of these really, really bad drugs like fentanyl or trank. We've heard of trank now, and bath salts. It makes them popular for a time, and then they'll move on to the next thing, right? And then there's the drugs that always are there, ever present, and they seem to just stick around even as the generations change, right? Cocaine, meth, obviously weed, if you can still count that as a drug. I guess it is because people are still making big money off of it. But so the question I guess we ask ourselves is, why do we care? Like, why do we care? Why do we care about the drugs that don't seem to be causing actual quality of life issues for most people, like fentanyl does? It causes people to like walk up Congress Avenue right here and just makes my neighborhood look like shit, right? Like that directly affects me. But why do we need to interdict? I mean, I guess you don't want a truck driver smoking meth, but he keeps him up. It keeps him safe. This guy's got to drive. He's been up for 4 days, this poor bastard. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to figure out so many lives have been destroyed by the war on drugs. And from what I can see, mostly from the like incarceration side, mostly from homes being broken up by people getting sent to prison for way longer than the money that they were making deserves, right? It's all the kingpins can always get out. Chapo's sons are ratting right now. They've killed tens of thousands of people. They'll be back in Mexico someday. They will be. You know, it's the black guy that's got a couple of ounces of crack that's, you know, been in and out, right? And obviously we could talk about his life decisions, like, you know, you shouldn't do any of this, but it just, I don't know. There's got to be some kind of, I don't know, my mind just goes to like, what is the solution? And I look at countries like Switzerland. They used to have a super bad heroin problem back in the 80s. Switzerland, of all places. And now you can go get it in a government-sponsored clinic, and it's completely cleaned up. The streets, the cities, no crime there. There's no drug traffic there, right? There's no illicit market there. I just don't know if America has it in us.
Yeah, those are difficult questions to answer. From my point of view, while you say that there's a lot of people that are serving time, maybe that doesn't correlate with what they did in the drugs, and I would tend to agree with you there. Okay, but the other side of the house is there's just as many or more of young people that died and overdosed in a lot of these drugs, car accidents. You mentioned truck drivers. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, whatever, but realistically, there's been numerous truck accidents where the truck driver is high and kills 10 people on So I'm not completely against what you're saying at all, but there has to be like a happy medium,
middle ground,
right? Where we're not seeing people go to jail, because they sold, 10 baggies of dope and they're spending 5 years in jail.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, we don't want to see people die from drugs either.
Right.
There has to be some type of even ground.
I know, you're right. Yeah, it totally. It's, I'm from Portland, Oregon, and they, around the pandemic time, they said, any drug, if you have under like 5 grams, it's literally, probably won't even write you a ticket. And that was just had terrible blowback, and very quickly everybody, all the liberal people were like, well, we're not that liberal. So America just can't, we just are a place of extremes, it's like, this isn't working. It's going to keep getting worse. It's going to keep getting worse until there's going to be some kind of resetting, I think, in the coming decades, probably a monetary reset.
There may be. And I think a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, are in the cutting edge of a lot of different drugs, and there's a lot of money being moved. And I will tell you that there's going to be introductions of new drugs over the next decade. There's going to be a lot of new drugs that are coming through the pipeline.
Drugs that are good though, that could like cure like opioid addiction.
Drugs, that are good. I mean, I know Pfizer, I know Monsanto, and those companies have been working on things for a very long time. But there's always a big but on that. Will those drugs be then taken to the street and be used for a different type of high, or who knows? I mean, because that's what happens, man.
Or will those drugs turn you into a fiend, right? Like
that's
like Percocets.
Yeah.
Most people, Percocets legal. Most people that are addicted to drugs get them from the pharmacist still, I think.
Yeah.
And
Xanax, same thing.
Yes, right. It's a great point. It's hard to trust Pfizer after what they did with the jab. It's very hard to trust Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Who are the people in Florida? Let's talk about your journey as a cop there and being with the DEA task force. Like, how did you get started?
Well, my road took me down a very different road. I mean, I was a Wall Street broker for 15 years before I made the turn into becoming a cop, right? One of the things that I've always wanted to do was be a cop and be a narcotics cop. Yeah. And it wasn't so much because I wanted to be cool or anything like that. It was more because I started seeing that there was a lot of people affected by drugs and a lot of people that were dying because of it. And so one day, I'm a year married, and I sit down across from my wife and I say, "Hey, honey, you know what? I feel like I need to serve for something greater. I need to do something greater with more meaning in my life." And, I'm a Christian guy, and she's a pastor, and her father is a pastor, very, very well-known pastor. And, she just looks at me and says, whatever God wants, and I'll be with you. I'm with you. Keep in mind that I went from making like $700,000 a year to making $38,000 a year. Okay, so that was
the typical road, right? To becoming a cop, you're a Wall Street millionaire first. Wow.
Yeah, and then I wanted to do something different, so I went out there. I applied to several departments, and finally, the city gave me an opportunity. Riviera Beach, and they hired me, and I went to work literally about a year from the point that I actually applied, went through the police academy, and then started working there. Very violent city, a lot of drugs.
Wow.
Probably more than per capita, more than any city in the United States.
No shit.
The things that I saw there are, at every level, whatever you think you've seen, believe me, I've seen it at the grittiest, nastiest level.
What are we talking?
Oh, well, where do you want to go? We're talking about, 12, 13-year-old dying in my arms with his brain splattered because there was a drive-by shooting, and I'm the last person that he says, help me to, right? We're talking about, I could tell you so many different stories. We're talking about people just, walking into a house and guys, hanging, that blew his head off, or hanging from the wall or from the ceiling. Kid, little baby died in my arms. I'm giving it CPR, and then that's what I remember the most.
Yeah.
Being in a gunfight, getting. One of the stories that I tell that has a lot of power to it, meaning that when you have reached a level of complete detachment working for a violent city, is we get called up. I was part of the SWAT team, part of one of the teams that were specifically created for the holiday season, and it was the Silent Night Task Force, and we're 4 deep in a Yukon tacked out. And, we get a call. We were only answering priority calls. A guy beats the hell out of his girlfriend. She's bleeding, whatever. We approach, we get there. We see him grab her, throw her in the car. The guy takes off. We start behind the guy. Probably about 10 minutes chasing this guy. He pulls over in the middle of a dark highway, and he kind of goes to the border of outside the actual paved highway and into the dirt road. And all of a sudden we start seeing a cloud of smoke around the car. He starts spinning the wheel, so it creates this cloud of smoke. Meanwhile, we're pulled out. We're like, okay, how do we approach this car? There's no way, right? We can approach it because it's extremely, you can't see it. It's extremely offsetting, meaning that you see an angle of the car here, but you don't know if that's this part or that part. So after that storm dies off, the sand kind of dissipates. We take positions of the car. We do tactical entry. One of the officers opens up the driver's side, and draws down on the guy. The guy's gurgling. We call it the last gurgle. He had blown his brains out, and the reason why there was a smoke cloud was because when he did that, his body reacted by pushing on the accelerator. Okay, so that caused that, and I'm on the other side, opening up. As I open up, there's brain splatter everywhere. His girlfriend's her head is completely blown off. She literally falls on my arms, right? And I'm sitting there, okay, fine. This is part of the job, mentally. So the other units get there, they take over, we hand that over to the patrol. And as we're walking away, and I never forget this, Lieutenant Anthony Smith, if you're listening to this, he looks at me and then looks at another officer and says, all right, man, you guys hungry? Let's go to Denny's. Boom.
Yeah.
That was that.
You got to turn yourself off, or else you couldn't do the job if you, broke down and questioned everything, humanity. If every time, you know what I mean, you had to make a call like this. That's crazy.
I would get home and I would say, hey, I got brain splatter on my uniform or on my vest or whatever. I would tell my wife. She would be like, don't bring that in. You put it in a bag. Yeah, it was no joke. It was like that. And it was like that, not just once or twice. It was like that pretty often.
Do you think that is driven by drugs a lot of times? Like, what is a baby dying in your arms? What's happening there?
Well, it's again, you walk into a house that has, the mom cracked out, the brothers cracked out, everybody's cracked out on that house. The baby is like 2 months old. She calls the police like, maybe 10 minutes after she sees her son blue, and it's like, you go there, you do everything you can, and it's crappy. But I'll tell you, and haven't talked about this in any podcast ever, but you ask me about drugs, right, and what they can do to people, and how they can change lives for the worse most of the time. So, and I'm trying to be more authentic lately, and I'm trying to be more open. So this was during one of our operations in the multi-agency diversion task force. And we had a buy bust set up, okay, which is an agent going to buy drugs from a person that's selling them drugs. And I remember this was in a Home Depot parking lot, and we had the takedown team. We're all tacked out, literally with balaclavas on, tactical vests. We were all tacked out, ready to move in. And I remember the agent. The agent, I believe, does the buy. He calls for the takedown sign. And I remember once we do the takedown, we approach the cars. Everybody has rifles. Get down, open the door, get down. Like a regular, handcuff them and take them away. If I get choked up, that's just because this is a powerful. And this young man must have been, 19 years old. I have the gun on him. I have my rifle on him. I'm telling him, open the door and get out. Open the door and get out. He's refusing to, right? And I'm like, get out. So I start opening the door. He starts holding it. And I see he has like a plastic bag with a whole bunch of pills in the bag. Probably, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 pills. And it's a plastic bag, and it's sealed up. And he looks at me, and he sticks it in his mouth. Right. So he sticks it in his mouth. I'm like, so I open the door, and I take him down to the ground, okay? And I'm cuffing him, okay? And as I'm cuffing him, I see him start like choking on the bag, And immediately, I don't think he was even ever cuffed. We drag him to the grass and start fucking going CPR on him, trying to dig that bag out of his throat. We went from arrest to trying to help this guy. We got the medics on the way. Try to get it out of there. And he died.
He choked, or he ingested those pills and overdosed?
He choked on that.
Oh my God.
He choked on that. Like he put a freaking plastic bag in his mouth. I mean.
Yeah.
And, I just think back and I'm like, man, his mom, he was a 20-year-old kid. Like, sure, his mom, the call, your son just died, just choked on.
Yeah.
And that's that was a tough one. Well,
that stuck with you.
Yeah, it stuck with me, especially the IA investigation that came after that. That was, that was freaky. We had to stay there, separate, the whole command got there, all the black cars get there, and you're like going through this and you're like, holy crap, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
You're going step by step, but you realize that, you really didn't do anything. You're just making an arrest. He made the decision to put that in his freaking mouth.
I wonder if that's like necessary. Did you ever think it was like overkill to go with, the militarization of the police? That's a phrase we've been hearing about a long time. It makes me very uncomfortable as somebody who's a libertarian and I distrust government, almost completely. Is that too much to go with baklavas and tactical gear to arrest one 20-year-old low-level drug dealer?
Well, it's more of a...
Like, does that cause more of a problem? Like, how riot cops, they go to peaceful protests and they basically make it more of an issue. Like, they kind of cause more chaos than what they're putting down or trying to put down.
So this is the problem, okay? And I could see it, again, from where you're standing, because I'm clear on that. Like it's a clear where someone sees like, why are these guys wearing, hoodies? Why are they carrying rifles? However, what you don't see is the flip side to that, where cops get attacked often, or I can't even tell you how many shootings that are cop, officer involved, especially when you are doing a buy bust, right? If you're not swift and you don't scare the living crap out of them, compliance becomes much more difficult. Then it escalates. When you do what we call violence of action, when you just come strong and attacking, it brings them down, de-escalates everything because they're very compliant.
Yeah,
everything is boom, boom, boom. Okay, so it's
scared.
more. It's
like,
more.
Holy
it's
shit.
more the effect.
Right
there. It's more the effect. The problem is that if you're just like, a patrol officer coming in, the drugs, whatever, hey, can you kindly get out of your car? That's never going to work. The guy has a gun in his hand. He has it in the glove compartment, whatever. Then you get into that there's too much time for them to act, too much time. So I can see it from your point of view, but from our point of view, from a police officer, we want to take that guy down as swiftly, efficiently as possible, done with it, rather than trying to mess around. Now, the balaclavas...
Go on a police chase like I took the cops on?
Yeah, but those are kind of fun sometimes,
Yeah. The second one had to have been fun for the cops that I took they were undercovers though, you know what I mean? This is a little different than... I actually never saw cops. I think there's people in, especially liberal states or less, I don't even know if it's a political thing, but like a place like Portland, Oregon just doesn't have the amount of crime that a place like, the coast of Florida, like a Florida town does. You would just never see SWAT team members doing buy busts.
Right.
I just don't think it's necessary. There just isn't a level of violence. So I think this is kind of unusual in some places like where I grew up.
Right. I mean, I could tell you stories where it got very, very, very violent, like very violent, very fast. So the escalation, you just don't want to leave it empty-handed where there can be any sort of retaliation. You want to completely just take control of the scene.
Right.
Get it moving.
Okay.
That's mainly. Now, the balaclavas, a lot of people say, why do you do that to scare people? Well, no, I just don't want people to see my face. As an undercover agent,
right.
I mean, why would I do that? There's people around, who knows? I mean, no, I mean, it's my family. I could tell you that I've been out with my family and I've seen, people that I've arrested that luckily I've actually had a mask on throughout the search warrant that, it gets uncomfortable. And I've also seen people that I've arrested and, they give me that look and then I know that guy from somewhere from 10 years ago. He gave me 8 years, 7 years. Yeah. So it's still, even today I ride my cars, all of them have 5% tint. I don't care if I get pulled over. I say, hey, listen, my cars, I put very dark tint because I don't want anybody looking in. I just don't ever know. I'm in a stoplight. Who knows? The area that I worked is only a few miles away, so
from where you lived.
Yeah.
Did you end up moving up beyond like the kind of street level riffraff?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So then, once we cleared that, President Obama came in, designated a task force, which was mostly, we were trying to target, these bigger dealers and bigger doctors, and we put away some very, very high level doctors. And from there, during this task force, we did so many different deals. Then we went into, some guys got selected into the Tactical Diversion Squad in DEA, and these were all very, very large cases.
And is that what you ended up doing?
Before, yeah. But
so you're sworn in federally?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a task force agent. Or they call it task force officer or whatever it is. But before that, though, let me kind of go back. One thing that I didn't talk about, before I went over to DEA, I worked a very long case undercover at the VA Medical Center. Okay. For a very long time.
Interesting. Tell us about
that. For an entire year. And we made 30-something arrests. Thousands and thousands of pills were seized. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were seized.
Whoa, hold on. They're selling pills out of the VA hospital?
Yeah. So I worked in conjunction with Office of Inspector General. And I went undercover there for a year. And I would go undercover as the janitor, as a doctor, as a nurse. And what would happen is a lot of these, and do some of these buys, and then people, the pharmacist, the main pharmacist for that particular hospital. And by the way, when I say hospital, it's a city. It's humongous. Huge.
The VAs are gigantic. Yeah. They're like college campuses.
Yeah. Exactly. They're just huge. So don't think of a hospital like, where you're walking in and there's 200 beds. This is like a monster city. Mm-hmm. So we had received several tips from different DEA offices that there was one of the pharmacist's sons had been caught selling pills, a lot of them, and it linked back to the mom that was actually a main pharmacist in the medical center. So we started. We hit search warrants. I went undercover, bought from not only from the actual pharmacist itself, but we also bought from different people that were selling in there that were in conjunction with the pharmacy. And I could tell you just story after story where there was a connection between the pharmacy. Imagine that what they were doing is they were shorting people. So you say you got 60, but I only gave you 47, right? And if you do 500 of those a day, you have like 800 pills left, and those were not accounted for, so they were going out the back door.
Okay.
This is daily. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And
so pharmacists that were working at the VA, legitimate pharmacists, been to pharmacy school, and they are supplying the streets. They're supplying drug dealers.
They're supplying, they were supplying,
with
drug
this
dealers.
Stolen OxyContin.
Yeah. Wow. And not only that, but we had guys in there that were already, there were nurses that were already, the DEA already had arrested them for cocaine trafficking, and somehow they were still working there in the medical side of the house. So they were also involved in this, where they were selling out the back door. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just all of it pills. A lot of it was cocaine too, inside the VA Medical Center.
What's the market there? How does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, it was a trading area for a lot of these guys where they would go into the laundromat. Okay, and there was a lot of deals being done there all the time, and it was just a normal thing. It was infested with drug activity, the entire hospital. Nobody had ever, they have a police department there, but they're not they're not even worried about all that.
You can't trust a male nurse. You know what I mean? Just like you can't trust a hot chick from Miami to not be a guy, you know? What? Anyways, hottest trans women in America, Miami. Wow. So how did you pose as, when you went undercover at this VA hospital, how did you pose as nurse, janitor? Like, weren't you worried about getting discovered? Like, how'd that guy?
That's the funniest thing in the world, okay? And I say this, and this is why security, you got to be very careful with it. I would literally go as an agent with my badge out at a certain time of the day to do my walk around.
Yeah.
2 hours later, I would come in dressed as a janitor, and the same security guard there, it wouldn't even.
No shit. I mean,
I would give them my other badge, the janitor or a nurse. They
wouldn't even notice.
No.
Would you go in with a disguise or anything?
Sometimes I would wear, a hat or maybe I had longer hair at that time, real long hair. So I would comb it a little bit, but nothing.
Wow. I mean, he's a security guard. He's getting paid peanuts. He doesn't care.
Yeah, doesn't care. So it was easy for me to get in there. I worked in different areas of the hospital. There were different areas. It was pretty unique. It was a very interesting experience in there, going in and really understanding the flow of how things were and how dirty really some of the things were.
So your goal was to pose as a buyer?
My goal or to get in with who's doing what in there and figuring out, getting the leads and figuring out who's doing what. So I was always the buyer. I was always the hired, more of the middleman saying, hey, if you can get me some of this, but I also did some buys, I bought from several people that are probably still serving jail time now.
Really? So that's a lot of time. Did you bust some of these like pharmacists?
Oh yeah.
Like all the way at the top?
All the way at the top.
And those are federal cases?
Federal cases, yes.
Now, how much time? So like, for example, that lady that was supplying her son, that pharmacist who was supplying her son with stolen OxyContin, right? Mm-hmm. What are the sentences looking like for someone like that?
I don't remember exactly what everyone received, but I know that there was anywhere between like 3 years and 15 years.
Yeah.
So we hit some people pretty heavy for 10, 12, 15 years. But those were the guys that were, they were not just your, hey, I buy, a couple pills from you.
Yeah.
There was multiple buys, and there was they would buy from other people, and there was it was an organized
thing.
It was organized. I mean, some parts of it not as much, but it was organized. The fact is that though, this is. This is for veterans, man. And people are paying. Tax money goes to this, and just getting ripped off left and right. It's just not. Didn't sit well.
No, that's not cool. What was the biggest bust you remember? Like, what was the biggest case that you were involved in when it came to OxyContin?
Yeah, I mean, we had we seized over, I think it was like 8,000 Oxy pills. And we had over, I want to say about a little bit over $500,000 in a search warrant that had to do with that pharmacist's house.
So these people are making millions of dollars.
Yeah. This was, by the way, this was in the attic. It was just like, hey, it was up there.
Yeah.
Like
extra
whatever.
money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And when you really track the money, it's not going to be in the attic. That's why, we worked with IRS, we worked with different whatever. And, you track where the money goes, right?
I hate to make this about race, but they're obviously like different ethnic groups tend to gravitate towards different black market drug trafficking activities and behavior. Were these mostly like white people?
Half and half. It was an equal, like pretty balanced.
Yeah.
We had a lady specifically. She used to sell all the time. She was just walking around selling all the time. Basically, I think that was her entire job. I think she was a janitor, but all she did was just sell.
Just walking around the VA hospital?
Yeah. And
just was she letting veterans know, hey, I can get you.
A lot of veterans would go there, and actually a lot of veterans would buy a lot of veterans. We arrested several of them, sadly, but that they would actually buy their stuff and then just go and sell it right there, and right there.
So it's almost a fancier Skid Row. Because when you go to Skid Row, you got a lot of veterans there that are selling heroin and fentanyl, and you just go to a clinic now. Right. Now, like in my utopian idea, or my idealistic idea of what a post-war on drugs world would look like, is a place like this. It's a hospital where addicts and drug users can come and get regulated dope given to them, right? But you're right. A lot of those are leaving. Most of those pills, it sounds like, were leaving the hospital and going to people that didn't actually need opioids for legitimate medical purposes, right?
Yeah, that wasn't the sick guy coming and saying, "Hey, I ran out of my pill prescription this month," and no, it was nothing.
And it's tax dollars. Okay, so how long did you do that for? How long were you part of this opioid?
Well, I was a little bit over 3.5 years. About three and a half years. I was at the multi-agency diversion task force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then where did you go after that?
DEA.
Okay.
And, that's where we did. Those were bigger cases. We went into several wires. I mean, we had been part of T1 wires for a long time, but we were presenting larger scale cases, and the whole workup in DEA is. There's a lot of investigatory, a lot of it is investigatory behind the desk, pulling this information, that information. But I'm going to say something here, and this is maybe somebody from the agencies can hear this. When it comes to information between one agency and the other, it's hogwash. It is horrible, horrific. Very bad. Like literally, FBI could have information that DEA knows nothing about, and then ATF could have information that FBI and DEA don't know anything about. ICE can have information here. I think now it's gotten a little bit better, but still from the people that are working out, they still say that it's not great. I mean, I can tell you that there were so many times where there was so much information that we had and so much information that FBI had, and we literally had to go to their office and sit there and talk with them and say, oh, so you know this guy? Oh, yeah, I know this guy. And I'm surprised that we didn't have any more blue on blues. We used to do the ninjas, making sure that these ninja reports, they're deconflicting reports. So when you're going to serve a warrant or you're going to do an operation here, you deconflict with the other agencies.
So you make sure when you bust a place, there aren't undercovers or people that could be,
ideally, yes. Yeah.
People from a different agency that are there and maybe they get hit in crossfire, something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, now that you're with DEA, that didn't take you that long, right? Like, how long did it take you to get to DEA when you first became a cop?
Well, I mean, I did 2 years, and then I went to Vice Narcotics. Vice Narcotics there, I did 3 years, and then I went. Then I was selected to be part of the multi-agency diversion task force. I did 3 years there, and then I moved, and then from there I was selected over and switched over to DEA, which I did. Very close to 3 years too, somewhere in that neighborhood, 2.5 years, something like that.
So what was your goal at this time? What was the field office you were working out of when you were with DEA?
West Palm Field Division, but we would connect with Miami Field Division. Okay.
So now we're talking lots of cocaine, right?
Yeah, it was, during that time, see, inside DEA, you have different groups. Right. You have different groups. Certain groups work certain cases, certain areas, or not certain areas, but they specialize more on, like, one group may specialize more on cocaine, the other one more on marijuana, MDMA, pills, whatever. So every group had its own. We did, get involved with cocaine. We did get involved with pills. We got involved in a lot of different cases. Now, with DEA, one of the things that you're going to realize right off the bat is no matter how good your case is, you better have it squared away before you bring it in front of an AUSA.
Right, right.
Because AUSAs don't take cases that are
loose.
Yeah,
they don't want to lose.
Slam dunk.
They don't want to lose. Yeah, right.
They want slam dunks.
So more of the work is done on the front end.
Well, you have to exhaust every single possibility in existence, right? You have to give you an example, doing surveillance on someone, right? From a perspective, okay, first you got to find out who this person is, what exactly they're doing, or get an idea. Then you have to surveil them, and you have to surveil them not just once in a while, but often, like hours and hours and hours a day. You have to document all this. Then you'll go and you'll start doing, a few things. You'll get a warrant to put up a poll cam. Okay. You start running the poll cams, all over, Yeah. Or you get a warrant to stop a GPS tracker on the car.
Right. Are those more common surveillance tactics now than like trying to tap a phone? Because every drug dealer, they know they're using burner phones. They're using chips.
You're not tapping a phone unless you're exhausted. All of what I just said.
Right. Okay. That's like because that's the most costly. That's the most invasive.
Yeah. The AUSA is going to say, have you done, when you sit in front of them, they're going to say, have you done this much surveillance? Have you done a poll cam? Have you done GPS trackers? Have you done direct buys?
Right.
And even have you done any rips? Rips are basically you pull the car over and, you search the car. Okay. You've already been surveilling them and you saw what they did, but you're not arresting them at that point. You'll freaking take the 200,000 they got and say, go, get out of here. And then you document that. So
okay.
And then you can use that as evidence, okay, to build your case.
Right.
Then eventually, if you've exhausted all of those possibilities, then and only then will they, hook you up for a wiretap.
Right. And are those even effective though?
Wires?
When I was in the game, I would go to it was called Fred Meyer. It's the HEB on the West Coast. I would go to the rack, or I would send somebody in, and we would buy 20, 30, 40 burner phones. We would buy them all. We would clear them out.
Right.
And I would use the phone once, and then I would toss it. They couldn't get a wire on me if they tried.
Right. Is it effective? For us, it was effective to a certain degree.
So big time drug dealers are talking on phones that are registered to them?
Big time drug dealers are a lot of the communication that we had on these wiretaps were more about because they're always going to have one main phone. They're not just going to be on loose phones all the time.
Right.
They're going to have one phone where they talk to their girlfriend,
right,
where their girlfriend could call them,
right,
where their parents could call them,
right,
whatever. So typically that is the main phone that we know that for the most part is registered. So we understand that we're not going to get
them talking about a big buy.
We did, man. We implicated a lot of people that.
Right.
Let's just say that some of these wires, you never know who you're going to get on the other line.
For sure. Right. People get lazy. People get sloppy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what you're hoping for is that he kind of says something and in these conversations, so you have an idea of what's happening.
Yeah.
We made some arrests off good wiretaps. We made some very, I think I would say very strong arrests. Now, is it the end all be all, especially in our day and age? I don't know how effective they are, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. So got it. So it sounds like you're using an element of all of these tools to try to make a bigger case. Okay. So who are some of your targets in your years at the DEA?
We had,
because this is recent stuff. This is not like something from years gone by. This is people should pay attention, because this is like gives a snapshot of how it is today, how the game works.
My group specifically. Well, we were working a case out of China. One of the guys was working at where the MDMA game was big at that time. So we were trying to work a case there. As a matter of fact, I remember some of the agents were flying out or going that direction.
Well, what do you mean? How do you work a case out of China?
Well, you start making contact and acting like you're somebody else, and then you connect, and so they were working it in a really cool fashion where I was like, damn, how do you do that? But a lot of these Chinese, they want to connect with Americans, and they wanted us. They didn't know it was us, but they wanted us to be someone that build a relationship with, and then bring in a whole. I think they were talking about like 100,000 pills at one time, But
so you're posing as buyers.
Yeah, that was that. I left before all that happened. But one of my biggest cases was. I really can't say the name because it's too recent, and there are still some areas of the trial that are still ongoing. But it was a pretty big arms seller, and this guy. There were several. He had different connects from different areas throughout the United States and Mexico, and this individual was bringing in a lot of meth and also cocaine. Pills were his main, but when
what kind of pills?
Oxy, straight up Oxy. But at that time, towards the latter part of me being in DEA, pills started to go down a little bit.
Right. So
meth and cocaine, and we built a case where he sold us firearms, and when I went undercover, sold us firearms, sold us crack. Some other types of cocaine. It wasn't, when I say other types, I'm talking about, even to this day, I think it was laced with fentanyl. It was a brownish color cocaine that we're still trying to figure out. Not now, but at that time, we didn't really understand what it was, but it had traces of cocaine. This person, we surveilled them. We had a big case on them. The ATF was working it with us. It was a very... It was I don't want to say it was a super high level case, but it was a mid to high level guy. He had direct connect with the Medellin cartel, and also with a group called something Fox. I don't remember, out of Mexico.
What part of Mexico?
I don't remember.
It's pretty crucial.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly. It was a group that was actually. It was a group that had beheaded. I remember we used to get pictures.
Still got to get more specific.
Yeah, it was a group that had beheaded people. So
they all do that.
Yeah.
Which group? The Zetas?
No. The Zetas I know do that, but it was something...
Cartel Noroeste, Northeast Cartel, the Sinaloa Cartel, Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación.
No, hold on. It was... they had a name, something like Fox.
Fox?
Or yes.
Wouldn't be Fox unless it was a Spanish word. But it sounds like they're maybe one of like a subsidiary group of one of these bigger cartels, perhaps.
I don't remember exactly. It was a group that had done some nasty stuff. That's all I remember. And he was tied in with them. And then there was also some politics involved with some people in different areas. I don't want to say city commission, but I think they were part of some city structure in one of the cities in South Florida. And it was a pretty nasty.
How so?
They were involved in letting him. From what I remember, he had it was a auto car, like a paint body shop or something like that. So he was dealing from there. And apparently some of the city commissioners or somebody in the commission knew that he was there. I think the FBI at that time had already arrested or was going to arrest some of the guys in the city commission, and because they were part of the whole operation. My part of this particular in this particular case was the surveillance side and the firearms side working together with ATF. So FBI was working another angle, the same dude, and I believe that ICE also was working because they had some connects with one of the cartels that I don't remember their name, Fox, whatever. They had a connect there. So it was a very interesting case. We finally, we made the arrest. But during that time when we made the arrest was, they went to trial and then they went to trial again. And then after that, I had already left DEA.
Gotcha. So, and it sounds like there's corruption involved. Did you find any more of that in Florida, which has been historically notoriously corrupt, local police, state police? Did you ever stumble upon any of that when you were investigating these drug dealers?
Police corruption was very rare. I never came across it, with the exception of maybe, a cop that came on a wiretap one time that he worked. I don't remember where he worked, but he worked for another department. But outside of that, I never came across that. Now, city commissions, that wasn't
city commissioners?
Yeah, like city commissioners. I remember a couple of city commissioners.
Why would they be in bed with criminals and drug dealers?
Well, I think there's all, kickbacks. There's money involved. I never worked a case that I was the primary, but I know that there was people involved in the city commission and some of the wires that we went up on.
What is the benefit to a criminal and a drug dealer? What are they paying the city commissioner for?
Well, let me say this. Well, I mean, kickbacks, meaning like, let me operate, keep the police away, I get arrested, things like that. Hell, man, are you kidding me? We had let's just say one of the mayors for the first city that I worked for. I mean, we would pull them out of crack houses.
The mayor.
Yeah.
This is the guy who was in there getting high.
Yeah.
Mayors love to get high. For some reason, mayors specifically love to get high. I think it's because they want to ingratiate themselves with the people. Yeah. Mayor Marion Barry from Washington, D.C., caught on camera smoking crack with some hookers.
Damn.
He made a comeback, though. I think he got elected again after that. The mayor of Toronto, that dude, I think his name's Tom Ford. Something like that. Something Ford, crack smoker. Dude, mayors love smoking crack.
Man, I don't know what it is.
So you thought city commissioners have the ability to at least tell cops, hey, nothing to see over here, investigate somebody else.
100%.
Wow. So you don't even have to pay off cops anymore. You go to the local officials. And what does that look like? Clearly they know they've got to be subtle. What is that? How does that corruption happen?
Well, at the time that I was there, we saw that where, you would arrest someone and you would get hey, let him go, or some to the effect of, when they would go to trial, they would know the judge, and all of a sudden you're the arresting officer.
Right.
You're like, how the hell did this guy get off? Well, wait a minute. He knows this guy.
Right.
No. So there was always a mixture, especially in the lower, say, socioeconomic districts and cities. I don't trust city commissions at all. I never have, and I probably never will.
But who's in a place like that, who has the money to corrupt a city official?
Well, I mean, under the table, you get a guy that says, "Hey, you get me off, I'll pay you a couple grand here, $3,000 there," or
wow.
It doesn't even have to be that.
That's really low level shit.
It doesn't even have to be that way. I let you eat for free at my uncle's restaurant for ribs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's all it takes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, really?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's favors. And are these just local native drug dealers, drug traffickers doing this, or does it go as far back as like Mexican organized crime in your view?
So in my career, what I saw was you can have a low-level street guy that's just a corner doper, right? That swings dope in the corner. But then who he works for, usually that guy has a broader reach to go to the middleman, right? So you're not so far off going right to the corner guy, because I remember the corner guy led us to a lot of bigger deals and a lot of bigger, mid-tier guys. They're not ever going to reach the head of the cartel. Okay. But they'll reach the dude that's, next in line or 2 or 3 down from that, where he is the the guy that's distributing it and he'll
bringing it in wholesale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we had, I did a reverse, and I taught in the police academy for over a decade, and I would put this video on so they could see what it looks like. One of the reverse, this guy was part of the, not the Medellin cartel, but the,
man, you got to know these names.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. You said it a moment ago, the Zetas.
The Zetas?
Okay,
yeah.
And he was part of this group. His family was attached to that. Okay. And he lived, he was a Mexican guy, lived, in one of the cities nearby. And he swung a lot of cocaine. Okay. He wasn't a corner doper. He was a upper mid-level guy. He was a guy that had direct contact with the distributor. Like he was that source. And so we did a reverse. I mean, I had to sell him on the phone. I had to speak Spanish to him and sell him on the phone to come meet me at a designated area. Okay. And that I had, 2 kilos that he was going to buy.
Did you actually have the dope?
It was.
Do you bring in a reverse buy bust? Do you bring the drugs?
Right. And in this particular time, we did have the drugs, but they were fake.
Okay.
In this particular time, but we had done it before with real.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But it's not what you see in movies sometimes. Okay. They just give you the fake stuff. It doesn't really work like that all the time. You have to have a lot of clearance for that. But for this particular one, the cool thing was that I had the way it was supposed to be is, as an undercover agent, you want to make sure that, especially when you're doing a reverse, that you take command of what's happening in front of you. Like the guy comes in, you lead him where to sit in the car. It's super important. You're not just letting some dude walk in on you unexpected, right? So the idea was for me to park and then to have him come in next to me in the passenger side, and then we could negotiate there. Once we made a deal, then we would walk to another car, open the trunk, he would take it, put it in a bag, and leave. Okay. So what happened is that he came, instead of going to the passenger side, and I thought that I had locked all 4 doors, and I didn't. So he opened the freaking rear door. That's a worse position you ever want to be in, because he has an angle from the rear. I got to turn my head. Okay. So it's he's there. He lifts his shirt up, has a gun on him, and starts talking to me, saying, "Where the f***'s the dope? Where is it? Where is it?" I'm like, "All right, take it easy. We're gonna do this, whatever." I talked to him. I'm like asking him questions, trying to start building a little bit of a relationship with the guy. He gets angry and he asks me, hey, multiple times, are you a cop? Are you a cop? Tell me the truth. Are you a cop? Meanwhile, he has a beat on me in position, right? Like even if I drew my firearm and tried to, he would pop me 3-4 in the head by the time I turned around. So that's a very bad position to be in. And big time learning lesson, by the way. So finally, I was able to calm him down, build a relationship, and walk him around to the other car. As we approach the other car, he opens it. We open the trunk, and he's feeling it. He's touching it. And then automatically, like, he feels the weight on it. This guy, this is how much he had handled, kilos of cocaine. Like, if it was off by like a quarter of an ounce, if it was off by a quarter of an ounce, he knew.
Right.
He weighed it like this, and as he weighed it like that and he shook it, I'm like, all right, he's gonna call me out. He's gonna draw his gun or whatever. So I did the call sign to take him down. So my unit came, he saw them, started running, whatever. Finally, they tackled him and then they arrested him. But my point is that these guys that deal so much, they know the weight of this by just feeling and touching it.
Well, he must have been hard up, because if this guy's got real Mexican connects, why is he going through some guy that's dealing bricks out of his truck? I don't know.
I will
this
tell
guy,
you,
it must have been a drought, because
no, it wasn't a drought. I'll tell you what it was. It was the person that introduced me to him. He was snitching for the FBI.
Ah,
okay?
There you go.
So there's the trust link.
There you go. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of propaganda, in my opinion, in the news surrounding cartels operating in the United States. We know a lot just through the course of doing this show, but I'm glad you're here, because it's an opinion from the law enforcement side. Do you see actual cartel members selling drugs in the United States, or are the top level guys in a city like, Boca or Palm Beach, are they just getting it from the border after it crosses in from Mexico?
Twofold. In some areas, you'll see that the cartel is mixed in with the Mexican community, and they're living lives very, very low. Nobody would ever even know that they're there. Okay, right. They live amongst them. You would never even know that this guy is a cartel leader or any type of position. So yes, they are running the house, and they have their own mules running, okay, and delivering and doing their thing, but nobody knows who they are. Okay, so that's that part. The other side is, it is, for the most part, when drugs are coming in through the Mexican border, okay, it's almost like handoff, okay? There is no, we're going to take it all the way in deep into the United States, into the neighborhoods, into specific drop-off points. It goes to one destination, and from there it goes all over, all right? From everything that, across the board, people that we have spoken to, and any information, any intel that we ever had, was that these points of contacts were points where, think of, FedEx, plane comes in, drops off whatever, and you have all the trucks kind of take.
That's right. And those are independent dealers that are picking up from the mothership. Yeah. So it's not like the old days where Colombians would send their own people up into Miami to sell the drugs for them.
No, you still have submarines that come across once in a while. I mean, I remember working with the Coast Guard. We, in one of our operations, we did multiple operations, and when we were taking people down and arresting, and they would tell us the stories that they would tell us were, man, we come across some of these submarines, a couple times a year, 2-3 times a year.
In the United States?
Coming into the U.S., yeah.
Where is a submarine landing in the U.S.?
Man, right, there are so many cities that are not, see, this is the thing. I believe that there's a lot of drop-off points, because I remember in this city that I worked for, you had the entire intercoastal. There were areas that were completely unmanned, that anybody at 2 o'clock in the morning, you could just bring your boat there, unload, go across the, it's like a wooded area, come across into a street, and nobody, nobody would blink an eye, because nobody would see you.
Even in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Even in Florida. There's a lot that the Coast Guard doesn't cover still.
Wow.
And I've always thought that every police department should always have patrol units in the water. and I know it's costly, but the Coast Guard can't monitor everything, especially cities that are on the beach or that are especially the harbor cities that are on the intercoastal. Yeah, I mean, those are easy drop-off points.
Wow. So do you think semi-submersible submarines from Colombia are actually making the trip all the way to the Florida coast?
Recently, not too long ago. I mean, there was a couple of years ago. There was they took it down. It's made out of wood, and
wow.
and they work. And if you think that that's the first time that
of course not.
Listen, I was part of Blue Lightning Task Force. I was cross-designated Title 18, which means basically that the Blue Lightning Task Force is all ICE, right? So in that world of ICE, especially when you're patrolling the oceans and you're going and you're boarding ships and you're doing drug interdiction, whether it's from the air or whether it's from the from the boats. I only worked at a short time. And it was cool. I mean, shooting the engines off of off a boat is stalling.
You did that?
Is amazing. Yeah, one of the operations that I was in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was just we basically it was a boat that was called out as a it was carrying drugs and whatever.
Was it like a fast boat or like a cigarette boat?
No. It was probably like a 35, 40 foot open fisherman. Okay. But it had some big ass engines.
Right.
Okay. Motors in the back. And so, told it stop several times and finally didn't stop until we had to, they got back in the gun, boom, 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 boom. And they took the engines out.
Right. Did you guys, and you boarded it?
Yeah, we vessel boarded it. In that particular, I don't know how much they got, but they got some cocaine out of that. And there was a multiple arrest done. It was more, of a dynamic situation, but it's a very normal situation. They tell me that happens pretty often. And also in the middle of the waterway, they'll spot these boats. They'll cover them with kind of like a car cover, like a boat cover at night. So, and they're reflective, so there won't be any heat signatures. So when planes or helicopters are trying to, and it's all, it's all.
So smuggling's pretty robust in Florida still, off the coast of Florida.
Yeah, cat and mouse game. Did
you see any Colombians? Did you arrest any Colombians?
Yeah, Colombians were actually, there were a lot. Colombians were more sophisticated. Okay, they were more along the lines of trucks, and they would stash their drugs in places. Oh my goodness! When I went through one of the courses of for stopping trucks, drug interdiction for trucks, and one of the guys there told us a story that he stopped the truck and he seized over, what was it, like over 50 kilos and like 40,000 pounds of marijuana, like an excessive amount. And everything was hidden all the way at the front of the truck because it had like a false wall. Like you would think the trailer ends,
Yeah.
And it's just a false wall. Like you just think, you would not think anything of it. Like you would go in there and be like, damn, nothing's here. But one of the dogs was able to hit on it, and then they started punching walls, holes through that wall, and it was an entire 10 feet behind that. So they were very good at that. That came from a Colombian cartel. That was actually one of the Colombian guerrilla groups that was moving that.
Really?
Yeah.
And wow. And they knew that? You guys had intel that could trace that all the way back to Colombia?
Oh yeah. This is I didn't work this case. This is one of the guys that was teaching us in that particular group with that particular drug stop. But they had, where he worked, I want to say here in Texas, Palo Alto, I think, is where he worked.
Palo Alto? You mean El Paso?
El Paso.
Yeah,
El Paso. Yeah. And that's where this interdiction was. It was a very interesting story where he said hey, everything was there, but they had connections with the Colombian guerrillas, and also they had connections. a lot of the dope was being smuggled through like Hell's Angels and the biker gangs like the Outlaws and things like that.
Yeah. Why did you leave the DEA?
Well, after my time with the DEA, basically, I remember my the chief called back and said, "Hey, man, you it's time for you now to come back. You did your stint and teach, get promoted, be a sergeant, and maybe run the narcotics squad in the future." That's kind of like the way that it was posed to me. I thought it was horseshit, So I when I came back from that, I was not happy camper, and literally 2 weeks after that, I got into a gunfight in a gas station. My wife says,
"Wow,
it's time for you to get out of there and go to another police department." So I did.
Wow. How'd you get in a gunfight?
Well, this particular incident had to do with there's a guy that was in the gas station and laying down, sleeping in his car. He had a gun next to him. And then you ran his tag and he came back as he was a suspect of a robbery that just happened that night. So I remember police officers that got there before me were screaming in the loudspeaker, "Get out of your car, get out of your car, get out of your car." Guy didn't get up. So me and another younger officer, kind of like a rookie, he busted the window, and I told him, I said, "Hey, man, if you bust a window, you got to grab his hands, because if you bust a window and you let him free, he's going to turn around and pop 3 in your head." So, he broke the window, he grabs a gun, he turns around, but at the same time that he's turning around, I'm there, I see the muzzle of his gun, I'm backing away. He steps on the car and he continues to crash against the wall. And from there, he shoots, to this day, they're saying that he only shot once or twice. I don't know, man. There was gunshots everywhere. And the thing is, his backstop, this was like 8 a.m. in the morning. His backstop were parents and kids walking to school and buses driving by. So we had to aim very, very low on that doorway. In other words, on the car door, because if it penetrated through the window, we could kill people behind him.
Right.
So it was a very...
Okay, so you guys just smoked the...
Well, no, we actually didn't. He got out alive. He ran away from us because all our shots came on the door frame and most of them didn't penetrate, which is crazy.
Wow. So
he ran, whatever. Later on, he was caught by a dog, and that was that. But that was just 2 weeks after coming back from the DEA, and then I moved departments.
Yeah. It's like...
That never had happened in DEA,
of course not,
or any other narcotics team. But I go to the road and it's like,
yeah, because when you deal with high-level drug dealers, it's like these are professional people. Yeah. You're not going to get in a gunfight unless you're in Colombia or in Mexico, actively pursuing like a boss.
Right.
You're not going to get in a gunfight with one of these guys.
Very true.
It's only the people with nothing to lose. Yep.
Very, very true.
So why'd you write this book? Tell us about the book.
Well, the book, basically, it's redefining the 21st century man. One of the things as a police academy instructor that I saw was that men were not strong coming into the job. They were just weaker and weaker and weaker. So we started to see that women were stepping up their game and they were becoming way stronger than men. And I'm thinking, well, what happened to the warrior spirit, the mentality of a guy to come out here and do the job properly? So I started a podcast in 2017. The podcast took off. I started talking about, mentality of a man, masculinity, just overall the concept of living a warrior lifestyle, like a stronger type of man. And the podcast took off. Right after that, I said, you know what, I'm going to build a program or a brotherhood of men who, at the very least, want to be stronger. They just want to be stronger men. So I built a program that breaks men down and then builds them back up. We have an incredible brotherhood. And believe it or not, a lot of them are guys that were drug dealers, that were part of Mexican gangs and all that. that change their lives. And then we have a lot of high-level businessmen in our programs too. But it's just a great mixture of great men. And I figured, hey, I want to write a book about a little bit about my life, a little bit about, my experience as a police officer and how I view life, and pretty much, how I believe most men should live. So I divided it into 25 principles that I live by, and then, it's been a bestseller ever since.
Wow. Let me show the audience. Redefining the 21st Century Man. Rafa Conde, is that how you spell your last name?
Yep.
Conde. There we go. Wow, that's awesome. It's a bestseller.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. You can go pick it up. I mean, you get it at Amazon.
Anywhere.
The only place you buy books.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then you run a program. Where do the people find that?
Well, if you go to manofwar.us, you'll find everything there. Okay. I run my Instagram is at manofwar with 2 R's, and basically you'll find me. Look me up, Rafa Conde. I'm pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Wow. That's a real, that was a real like kind of U-turn that you made to become a cop and then a DEA agent, and then you're back being an entrepreneur, from finance to law enforcement to entrepreneur. So very interesting stuff, man. That's great. I congratulate you. And, I guess thanks for doing your best, trying to get drugs off the street. Didn't leave a dent, but it's like, you can't let it be a free-for-all, or else it'd be Europe. It would be Mexico. So, that's what people, I think, that's what even me as an immature man didn't realize about law enforcement. Like, it's never going to get rid of drugs and crime. But if it wasn't there, there's examples of what your country could look like. It would look like Ecuador right now.
So before we finish up, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Your interaction with police, how was it?
Always nice guys for the most part, except for, the guy that threatened to punch my teeth out, but I was being a shithead. Like, I can forgive that.
Well, your interaction, you feel like it was overall was a, I don't want to say pleasant experience, but a professional type of experience?
Definitely. I tried to bribe the cops. They didn't go for it. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars I was getting ready to like give these guys to let me, make a run for it. I wish they would have gone for it. But yeah, if I'm looking at it now as like a civilian, I'm like, yeah, it's complete professionalism. But, again, like I'm from, I know many, many, many stories of dirty people, not even at necessarily a law enforcement level, but like dirty prosecutors. I think those are way more rampant than like dirty cops.
Yeah.
Dirty prosecutors, dirty judges. And those people those people actually have the power over human beings' lives, right? Yeah. Like the cops, you guys are just the front line people that bring the dirt bags, or maybe not, off the street, So, I still think it's the best system of justice in the world, but it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous seeing, I think things are fraying a little bit. But I look at everything in terms of like a larger macro lens. Like our country's, the problem is that I see things through the lens of fiat currency. I'm a big Bitcoiner, but I'd be a gold bug if there wasn't Bitcoin. Like the problem is that our society's crumbling because the value of our money is crumbling. Venezuela is a society that's crumbled because their currency's dead.
I agree. Yep.
And so it starts with money. Yep. Go back to the Greeks, go back to the Romans. They started with their gold coins because the politicians wanted to make war, and they started diluting their gold.
The Romans,
and
they
boom,
ate it.
collapsed.
Yep.
You can put it's science. It's not like my opinion. It's a fact. So I kind of try to take a more macro view, and that's how I look at politics. Right. Things are going to get worse. We have a guy who's basically a petty autocrat now in power. He's a, right wing. The right wing tends towards fascism. And as a pushback to that, you're going to get a left wing government in 3.5 years from now that's going to continue to print money and become more of a socialist government. And that's going to keep moving the dagger further into our heart. And so it's just going to get more extreme until there's a big...
I hope you're wrong, man.
I hope I am too, but I don't think I am, because I'm just looking at what history does. It's extremes that are responses to extremes.
Yeah.
And it's been moving this way since the 90s. I'm old enough now to like have some perspective on that.
Sure.
Like it gets too left wing, and then it gets too right wing, and then it gets way too left wing, and then it's going to get way more right wing. So, I mean, I think, and that's going to affect institutions, and that's going to make people have less faith in institutions like the police, like the justice system. So, but no, I think most cops are just doing a job. I mean, obviously there's dirty cops, right? There's shitty people in all places in all different fields, but no, in my whole journey on the other side of the law, the cops were like the coolest ones. The shittiest people were the DA, the prison guards. To be honest with you,
I've made some friends that I've arrested. I've made some friends of guys that they were very, very dirty at one point in their lives, and I listen. One of the things that when I did this job, I never judged people. Like it wasn't like, hey, you're a bad dude. I never judged people.
Right.
I'm doing my job. You got caught in the mix of it, and I could tell you many a times where their moms would call, fathers would call, please, can you work, help me work, my son down to whatever.
Yeah.
Or their wives would call, please. And, there were some negotiations that went on the table with the prosecutors, and, they're asking me to. So, to me, I don't judge people like that, unless you go out there and you're a pedophile. Okay.
Right.
And, you're a pedophile, or you're someone that actually killed somebody blatantly just for the hell of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, it all comes from larger problems. It all comes back, and this is a good way to end the podcast. Why do people take drugs? Right? It's like the whole King of New York when they ambush Frank White, and he asked one of the cops, do you think ambushing me at some club is going to fix what makes people take drugs? Like, I'm not your problem, man. I'm just a businessman. Yeah. So, I don't know, but it's certainly fascinating to hear your story, because we usually don't have cops on. I think you might be the first DEA agent we've ever had on the show. So I appreciate it, man. And go check out his book, man. Redefining the 21st Century Man. Just go look him up and then go take his course. Rafa Conde, right here on the Connect with Johnny Mitchell. Thanks again for coming by, man.
Thank you, man.
Bless.